Good morning, everyone. It's Pam Jones, and I wanted to bring forth an article that I ran across about an elderly man who was electromagnetic frequency sensitive and was abused in a hospital as well as a nursing home. And this is something that I have personal experience with. As most of you know, I am electromagnetic frequency Wi-Fi smart meter sensitive, hypersensitive, and I have been in and out of the doctor's office and the hospital too many times to count over the last 2 years. I quit going when I left in my RV in April of this year, 2018, because I wasn't given any treatment. I was placed in hallways and waiting rooms and just exposed to an enormous amount of radiation and frequencies in the hospital, which just made the symptoms I walked in with much, much worse. The last time I was actually admitted into the hospital, put in a bed in a very strange, dark place in the hospital, and my symptoms just grew worse and worse. I didn't receive any treatment, not even fluids, and I was extremely dehydrated. So I have a great fear of hospitals and doctors' offices. I know that I cannot enter a Walgreens ever again. Those are very hot stores. Walmart is hot. Most of the major chain stores are very hot for me and put me into like a heart attack situation almost instantaneously upon entering those. So I wanted to bring this to your attention and try and just educate people as I go through this, because I'm just as new at learning about this as everyone else out there is. So let's read this. Elderly man with EHS abused by hospital and nursing home. This is a very disturbing story about how an elderly man with electric sensitivity was mistreated by the medical and social system. Elderly people with electric hypersensitivity, EHS, who are institutionalized are made to suffer. The personnel is supposed to listen to the people with disabilities, try to accommodate their needs and wishes, but who listens to someone with hypersensitivity? Nobody listened to Kaylee. Kaylee fell on the floor of his home. As far as I know, this was the first time it had happened in his old age. It was so unfortunate in that he landed between the sofa and the wall and couldn't get up on his own. He had to lie there for hours until he was found by his son. The son didn't believe in EHS and would not listen to Kaylee. Instead, he called for an ambulance, and Kaylee was taken to the emergency room. From there, he was admitted to the hospital. Kaylee wanted to go get home again, but then he heard the words forced hospitalization. That is my biggest and was my biggest concern, that or being labeled as mentally unstable the last time I was in the emergency room, being forced to stay in there against my will, and the exposure was just off the charts, and your symptoms just ramp up and become out of control. It's such a scary situation to be in. There's actually a video on my YouTube channel of me actually being in the hospital. If you want to go down and look in my videos, it would be around April of 2018 down in my videos. Kaylee was able to move around the hallways using a walker for the first few days, but then he became unable to walk. The high radiation EMF levels of the hospital paralyzed his legs, and now he had to sit in a wheelchair. And again, I can confirm that as you're under exposure, your symptoms increase. First, it's a wobbling in your head, in your brain, pain in your joints and your bones, severe confusion, severe burning of your eyes, my throat swells so I can't breathe. My brain burns, and next thing I know, I'm losing my ability to speak and to walk. So I can identify with what's going on. The hospital actually brought me a walker, and I refused to take it because I knew once I got out of that hospital that the symptoms would start to decrease and my ability to walk would increase. So I totally understand this story that I'm reading right here. The medical test could not explain why Kaylee had fallen in his home. After a week in the hospital, he was told that he would be allowed to return to his home and receive assistance from social services. He met with a social worker whom he told he had EHS and that he needed the social services to accommodate that. He thought the social worker made a note about the issue. Kaylee was able to walk around when he returned home. He walked on his own legs from the car up the steps to the porch and into his own home. He was overjoyed when he called me on the phone and told me that now he could walk again. Now he wanted to exercise his legs, which is the exact thing that I've been going through. When I'm under exposure, I lose my ability to walk. I lose my equilibrium. I too have fallen. I'm terrified of the medical profession and to even mention what I've discovered because I worry social services will take me into custody and force me to receive medical care that will overexpose me and cause my death. And I haven't read this article, and I would be led to believe that that's what is probably happened to this loving, beautiful man who identified the same thing. A nurse showed up while we were talking, so we ended our conversation. What did the nurse do? Did she listen to Kaylee? She brought along a wireless monitor, which she fastened around his wrist. Kaylee protested, explaining that he had EAS and did not tolerate such a wireless device. He had to have it, the nurse replied. Kaylee sat in a chair in the kitchen, and there he continued to sit, as he was not able to walk with the monitor on his wrist. She was not nice, Kaylee later said about the nurse. The next day, a man showed up and started to drill a hole in Kaylee's front door. Kaylee was still stuck in his kitchen chair and could not walk, so he shouted, "What the hell are you doing?" to the man. The man replied that he was installing a wireless door lock so the nurse could open the door with her cell phone. Kaylee replied that he didn't want this new lock as he did not tolerate wireless things. He had to have it, the man replied, and he installed the lock. They're installing death in him, by force, by stealth. It's just terrible what we all are facing. Kaylee was stuck in his chair. He received visits from social services morning, noon, and evening. He was left alone to eat the meals they brought. Even though it was difficult for him to eat and swallow his food, he used the wireless monitor on his wrist to get help, but that taxed the social services so much they moved him to a nursing home. The EMF radiation levels were higher in the nursing home. The dining hall was the worst, with all the cell phones, electric wheelchairs, and hearing aids. Kaylee had even more trouble swallowing his food, so it was almost impossible for him to eat. He could eat yogurt. He asked to eat in his room, but that was declined. Now, I experienced this. My stomach is like in a knot, like it's convulsed in a knot. And it wasn't until I left my home that I was able to start eating, drinking water, and digesting food. And I still struggle right now to this day. I have to limit my cell phone usage. The EMF radiation levels were higher in the nursing home. I already read that. Kaylee was plagued with dizziness, headaches, various pains, and simply feeling poorly due to the electrical environment in the nursing home. He had problems eating, sleeping, drinking, but nobody cared. Kaylee wanted to get home. That was better than the nursing home. Kaylee was not allowed to move back home. That I should end up in such a bad situation, he said. He just wanted to die. Finally, he was allowed to move back home. Of course, he had to live with a wireless monitor and door lock, and not enough assistance, but he came home. His health was now much worse after living in the nursing home. He died not long after returning home. Kaylee's obituary says that gifts to cancer research are welcome. But wait, it was the EHS that was the problem. Even in death, his illness was ignored. There are many like Kaylee, suffering, ignored, and finally destroyed by an environment they cannot live in. You and I are next. How long do we have to be silenced and ignored? We must raise our voices to stop these abuses. I can identify with absolutely everything in this article. The day I left the hospital would be the end of March 2018. I left within days of walking out of the hospital after being admitted. I packed up my RV and I moved to a campground that I have now abandoned because campers kept coming in with Wi-Fi hotspots that would immediately take me down and bring me to the edge of death's door. I know it's hard to believe that something invisible that you can't see, smell, or taste is making us terminally ill. But I'm here to tell you that I am personally going through what Kaylee died of. This cannot go unnoticed. We are the evidence. We are the canary in the coal mine. I'm Pam Jones, and I'm a canary in a coal mine. I'm looking for a scientist or a doctor who's willing to work with me and conduct blind studies so that we can prove this, because at this point, hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people are suffering. I'm here to tell you, I will continue to tell you, it's extremely torturous and painful. The quality of life is zero. And having to run and be a refugee in my own country and not being able to seek medical professional help is a travesty. I believe this to be some sort of silent weapon to slowly take us out. 5G will be an amplifier of this terrible, horrible situation. We all have a limit to the exposure that we can undergo until we start to break down. You too will be Kaylee. I'm Kaylee. I am the new American EMF Wi-Fi refugee. I'm the canary in the coal mine, and I am the evidence. Please share my story and visit my new Facebook page, The New American EMF Wi-Fi Refugee. We need to alert all of our country and the world. We need to stop 3G, 4G, 5G, all these cell towers. We need to do whatever it is that we have to do. Watch my new group page for calls to action. At this particular point, folks, I see President Donald Trump, doing so many good things to stimulate the economy, but it's no good for the future of a dead American EMF Wi-Fi refugee. And you are next. There's no way to stop the progression of your exposure. It's everywhere. Thank you for listening. Take time to share this story. If you feel inclined to help support me, my PayPal link is below. I'll continue to share the word and my story as long as I possibly can. This has been Pam Jones. Be blessed.